My dear friends, welcome to the Inevitable Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Pedro Soren. I'm a VC, author, and entrepreneur. I'm the founder and CEO of Atman. We are a close community of founders and investors playing long-term games together. As you know, my life's mission is to partner with inevitable people, and in this episode, I had the honor of talking to a dear friend of mine, Senor Lucas Olmedo, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Fligoo. Lucas and I met 8 years ago in a very iconic table at a co-working space called The Hattery. It's funny that that group continues to be friends, and we were all just starting our journey in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, sharing all of our joyful moments as well as, anxieties and fears together. It's really, really good to be with Lucas and have him as a part of the show. For those who don't know, Fligoo is a global technology company established in San Francisco back in 2013 when we met. They've been at it for about 7 years, and they're one of the best advanced analytics and decision science tools that are out there. They basically develop intelligent solutions based on a proprietary algorithmic framework used by global leaders in financial services and retail industries. They have offices in San Francisco, New York, Sao Paulo, and Cordoba. Fligoo is today one of the fastest growing AI startups in the world. Their venture back raised a few million. And in this episode, we dive deep into Lucas's trajectory. Talk about his upbringing in Argentina and his decision to move to San Francisco, as well as the challenges that he's facing while building Fligoo. I hope you like it, and let's go. First and foremost, Lucas, I just want to thank you for being here and for your time. Just basically taking the time to record this and being available.
For sure.
It's
anytime.
Always awesome to chat with you, and I think that you have in many ways a similar story to every successful founder that I know, which puts you in this category of being an inevitable entrepreneur, and then in other ways so unique, right? And that's the beauty of all these stories. I love the context in which we met. So for those listening, Lucas and I, we met right when I had just moved to San Francisco, and so did he. And we shared a desk at a co-working space that doesn't even exist anymore in Soma, probably 7-8 years ago, called The Hattery. And I was there to be the first person from SendGrid from Colorado, Silicon Valley, and had to pick a place for me to work. The company gave me a budget. I picked The Hattery, not because of the people or the ecosystem, although the people were awesome, but because they offered free lunch. And I could save some money.
Yeah, and time.
I was like, oh yeah, I can save some money and time, and whatever is left financially, I can use to go on dates. That was my my plan.
That's awesome.
And it's funny that everyone that sat at that table to this day, are all important people in my life, and I keep in touch and so forth. So, it's great to have you here, and I'd love to just get started first with the beginning of your story, Lucas. Like, you are from Cordoba, from Argentina. How was your childhood? How was Lucas as a kid?
Oh, I know. I think it was I had two different. It changed a lot from my childhood to my teenage stage. When I was a kid, I was with a lot of energy, which it is a little bit it's not always good for a kid when you go to school and you have a lot of energy and you want to do more stuff, and our education system is still sit on the bench, sit on that place and raise your hand to talk and ask for permission if you want to go to the bathroom. So it was I had a beautiful childhood. I don't know. I was lucky. I was very very lucky to be born in this family, which always pushed me to give my best. You know, like don't care that much about the results, but give your best. Always like pushing me to dream a lot, and that if you like do whatever you have to do in order to get there, you will get there. Although that specific phrase, for me, it was very like in the like in my 20s, it was very hard to accept that. You know, like and when I was young, it was amazing, but when I was 20s and I didn't know what to do, it was like I know it was hard for me. That like the possibility of like you can do anything because you're capable of anything. You were lucky enough to be here. It's like the bar is super high, you know. Like what's anything? Like yeah, what are my expectations there? You know, like so it kind of worked both ways, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember one thing you told me, and I think it correlates with that moment where we're starting to enter the adult life, which for many means, pick a major in college or what are you going to study. And I didn't know that, but I remember this is a very vivid memory I have from many of our conversations when you told me the day you figured out that you were a math genius. And I know you're very humble about that. And you're not, you don't say you didn't. It's not you're absolutely the opposite. You're not braggadocious about it at all. But that I'd love to learn more about your decision into you had the opportunity, right, to go to Berkeley, but you decided to stay in Argentina, and how did that came about, and the decision making behind that as well? Like,
yeah, I know it's like definitely not a genius, but yeah, I knew I had some like math was like kind of easy for me during my whole life, but I didn't know how if that was worth anything to anyone. And I ended up in a school in Argentina that made you sit for the SATs, and I know.
So you went to an American school in
it's
Argentina?
It's like a British school, but you sit for the SAT. It's weird, but like.
I see.
But
was it in
Córdoba?
Córdoba or in Buenos Aires?
Córdoba. And we sat for the SATs, and I was like, I went there without the calculator, and I just began doing like my exercises, and I didn't do any mock tests before. And then I received an amazing score, and I began like having scholarship offers, from universities. Like I received I applied to the Hawaii University because I was 17, and I said if they're gonna offer me a scholarship from some place, I'd rather be Hawaii. I want to surf, the other one, and that was the only university I applied for. And then I had received a scholarship offer from Berkeley, and I was like, what do I do? I never even knew I could get a scholarship from an American university. I just was there doing what the school told me I had to do. Nothing. I was discussing with my parents should I go or not? And they asked me, do you actually want to go? And I said no. I just rather, I never thought about it, and I want to stay here, and I want to build something. I never planned to get out of my country, I always planned to do whatever I had to do in order to get to a specific place, but it wasn't never in my plans. Okay, I want to leave the country, study abroad, and now as well, I want to get to this place, and whatever I have to do in the middle, I'll do it. I received the scholarship from Berkeley, and I said, okay, that happened. And 6 years later, when I was living in San Francisco, and I get to Berkeley, and say fuck, this would have been amazing. I would have a closer relationship to technology before than I had, when I was 18, not when I was 24, or 25 when I began with Fligoo.
Yeah, it's funny. I was having a conversation about this with another founder, Diego Gomez from Rock Content, and he became the global leader in his space, but started a company in Brazil then bought a company in the US and, started selling to the entire world. It's a super, super cool story. And we were both talking about what if, when we were 15, we had the right type of vision to, like, how many years we could have saved. I know it's a dumb, it is what it is, but I understand your point, your pain of, like, then you're suddenly like, oh, I could have started much sooner.
Yeah. I remember it's like seeing the Bay Bridge from the rooftop in our apartment, and see, like, across that bridge I was supposed to be studying, but I think that everything ended up like the best way of getting, like, if you took me to an American school when I was 18, like, I'm 100% sure that would have been good for me because of the way I was when I was 18 or 19, in my 20s, the early 20s. I think that would have, like, worked in the good sense.
Yeah. How were you when you were that age?
I know, I was still trying to be a rebel with no cause. And I wasn't mature enough to be responsible of. I didn't measure the consequences of my acts. I just acted, in the good and the bad ways, like with the good and the bad consequences of that. But I just, like, went through life, like, not caring, like, about what could happen if. Of course, I cared about the people that I love, and I think that was the only boundary I never crossed. But the rest, it was like, nothing can happen to me, nothing can harm me. I'm invincible, and I know, like, it was crazy because, like, after you think that in that way, the slightest or the smallest change in your life, like, just brings everything down, because that that belief, I know, what you believe has, like, not a lot of, like, background,
That's right. I think a good summary of that is also, someone that is the author that I gift the most books to founders. It's the guy named Robert Greene. He's he's the author of 40 Laws of Power, 33 Strategies of War, The Art of Seduction, Mastery, Laws of Human Nature, and so forth. And I was listening to an interview from him yesterday, where he talks about, like, how did his life change from him being a multi-million-dollar best-selling author to having a stroke and being debilitated, and then continue to ship books after that, and how he beat suicide, and how that made him a better author, because he was a very independent person that technically had made it, right? He had enough money to, like, travel anywhere he wanted, eat anywhere he wanted, do whatever he wanted, and then had a big health problem. And the conclusion of that, I think, that correlates with what you're talking about in terms of living life in a way where you think you're invincible or being a little reckless, is that it's very difficult to learn important lessons from success. And typically success doesn't teach you that much. And he was talking about when he was another book that he had is where, the 40 Laws of Power. It was a very popular book. It was his first book and probably the most popular one ever. Is that then he wrote a book with 50 Cent called The 50th Law. And then the first draft of that book was rejected, and it wasn't. And he was like, that actually kept me grounded. It made me more humble. I learned that I wasn't, the best, like the super amazing shit that I thought I was, and then he said that's how it works in life in general. He even talks about Napoleon. In terms of, like, he had probably, like, the best decade in terms of success, all the way until he makes himself emperor, and then his falling out because he lost humility. So
yeah, I know. Like, for me, the only way of learning, like, really learning, because, like, like one thing is to take some lessons and take some inputs, but when you learn is when it hurts, when it hurts you. And the important lessons, like I can feel them in my skin. I remember the feeling in my bones that day. I remember like burning inside. And when you get burned, you don't want to go back again, you know? You don't want to get that feeling again. And I think that for me, for example, moving to San Francisco, like when I was in Argentina, I actually felt, when we began with Fligoo, I actually felt like no one could beat me. Like no one. I got to San Francisco, man. Oh my God, like I was nothing. Like I was nothing, and everyone was so much smarter than I was. Everyone was like so much focused than I was. Everyone had like all this knowledge that I had like it was like I had to like be reborn again, dealing with investors, raising money, people telling me, yeah, I'll do this for you, and then like forget about it. And I remember like he might not remember, but like of course he doesn't remember, but Wences Casares, I remember when I got to San Francisco, I had a girlfriend, right? I broke up with my girlfriend. So my mom flies from Argentina to say, okay, like, I'm going to go and visit my son because he must be sad, blah, blah, blah. She comes and we tell her, like, me and Juan, we tell her, okay, we have a meeting in Palo Alto with Wences, right? So she says, like, okay, I'll drive you there. Then we go for lunch. I was so excited about meeting Wences. He was like for me the number one.
Yeah. Well, for those that don't know, Juan is your co-founder, and then maybe you want to explain to people who is Wences as well.
Wences is like the founder of Sapo, but before that he founded another company called Patagon, which he sold to Santander, and then he created Lemon and Lemon Bank and Lemon Wallet in Brazil and a lot of companies, one of the first believers in Bitcoin.
Yeah. And I think so he's by far one of the most successful Argentinian founders that crossed that barrier from being just a successful Argentinian tech founder to being a world-class successful founder, which I think that it puts him into that place where all of us, when we move there, we want to be there, right? Like, so there's that very, it makes it a very aspirational person. So just to put in context for the folks listening. So, but I love this. So your mom is driving you guys for your first high profile, big important investor meeting in Silicon Valley. But like, let's continue.
And it was like. And what I loved about Wences, he was the first one to cross and go to the Bay Area. He went to play the Champions League, the World Cup. He didn't stay in Argentina or in Latin America. He wanted to go there. And we go to the meeting. Okay, we have a meeting, and when you go out, like our faces are like we're dead, like. And my mom asked, "What did this guy do?" And actually, who was the first honest person in San Francisco. He was the one that told us, like, this is hard. You're playing against the best ones. And if you're one of the Argentinians that claim that they're coming to San Francisco, but they come like 15 days every quarter, this is over. You got to stay at least a year. After a year, things will begin to happen. And it was like that, but in the moment, I remember he was crushing our dreams, but in the best, that was the best advice I could ever get. It was amazing.
That's perfect. I'm usually also very honest with all the immigrants and founders that want to come to Silicon Valley think it's easy or glamorous. I call people like us. There is this rap album in Brazil from Racionais MCs, which is called Sobreviventes do Sistema. So we're like, system survivors, right? Because ultimately it's so hard and so competitive that the system kind of wants to like push you and expel you. And the most typical people that come from Latin America to Silicon Valley are either wealthy people that just rent a house in Palo Alto or Atherton for a little bit, and they kind of hang out and keep having coffees because they have the money to burn, and then their kids kind of go to public school and they're just kind of like chilling out for 1-2 years. Maybe they'll do some courses at Singularity University or Stanford, and they think that they fucking found light and Jesus at the same time, and they're like innovators. So you have these people. And I think you also have the tourists, right, that go to like One Hacker Way to take selfies at the Facebook logo and love to post about everything they do. They go to Whole Foods, they fucking take a selfie. They go to this, they take a selfie. They go to this, and then we got people like us that are just here, very ambitious, have a very specific view, but also super naive, right, about the first steps into that entire ecosystem and how hard and how competitive it is and how very few people give a shit. It's so much about you having that self-reliance, that ability to like overcome issues and so forth. So, before even coming to the early days of you guys in the Bay Area, I'd love to just learn more about the creation of Fligoo and how did that start. So you went to school in Argentina, right? And then what was your major again?
Business. Yes.
You study business, and then did you start Fligoo while you guys were in school? That's how you met Juan, or what was the story?
No, like Juan and me, we go back. Like my parents are like his parents' best friends. So yeah, so we like my first trips to Brazil was his family and my family, to Florianopolis. So we've been best friends since we were like born, and like through our whole career, he studied like to be an accountant, and I studied business. Through our whole the whole university, I was calling him like every single week or every single month. I've got an idea, and he was very focused on what he had to do, on his career path. He knew like he had to study, do an internship, and then he would work for a big corporation and do an MBA. And I was calling him every single week, And then like one day, Juan used to have this girlfriend, and his mother-in-law was in Miami, and it was his mother-in-law's birthday, right? So he was trying to buy a gift for her online, and he didn't find anything. I was at his place, we were talking, and he couldn't find anything. And the next day I called him like, dude, like, there's a problem, we can solve it this way, let's do it, let's create a website in which you can buy, and let's use Facebook data in order to what we used to do in order to explain a bit. Fligoo, when it began, like, we used the Facebook API, which gave you access to your friends' information without asking for permission, which was crazy. Based on that information,
at that time it was possible. But yeah, this is the first iteration of Fligoo started as a B2C app, right? To help people
find gifts. Yeah, based on their social networks data, on people's social networks data.
What year was this?
It was 2013, at the end of 2012. But yeah, we began working in March of 2013.
7-8 years ago.
I know, and finally he said yes. Okay, this is an actual pain I have. There is an actual problem. We began doing some research. We found Marcos, which is our other co-founder, and he said no like 3 times before joining the company. And I know, when he said yes, we had like a founding team. We began looking for investors. We found NXTP, where we saw you. You remember talking? Yeah,
of course I remember. I was doing a talk in Palermo, in Buenos Aires, when I was still at SendGrid. That was the first time that we met. It was before San Francisco, but this is crazy. It feels like another life.
In a sense, it was. Like, actually,
yes.
We were doing so, like, something totally different, with a different focus, with almost no experience. We were unexperienced founders just going like, I was talking to Gonzalo Costa, one of the founders of NXTP Labs, and our first investor, and he was like, I don't know why I invested in you. I didn't know. I didn't believe in the product, in the market, or anything. I just believed in you.
I can see that, and I'm a big fan of Gonzo. By the way, he's a great guy.
Great guy. And I know, and it was like, okay, we'll figure it out. And I think, in a way, we did. It's more about like perseverance and 2 pair of balls, big balls, and a lot of luck.
That's right. Well, but I think the ability of not giving up is a common characteristic of anyone that's remotely successful, right? That is very important. But so childhood friends, Cordoba, north of Argentina. Let's try to do a B2C app with an algorithm that will help you find the perfect gift for your connections. For the ones that don't know, NXTP Labs is a VC firm in Argentina. They also had an accelerator at that time. I don't know. Do they still do that program?
No, they don't.
They don't. Okay, yeah. So they had the accelerator. You joined the accelerator, and then what was the moment where you realized? Because I think that's also a big jump. Not everyone. It's not that obvious. Specifically, when you were doing this, that you're like, oh, I need to go to San Francisco. So how did that mature in you guys' journey, basically? And when was the moment that you decide to go?
I think that like in our mind, like we always wanted to be a global company, and we wanted like in that moment we saw like there was no Latin American company who had a product that was used by the best companies in the world globally, or users, consumers, whatever. We had like Mercado Libre or Despegar, but those were like regional companies, There was in the moment, remember in 2013, consumer, there was no Mark Zuckerberg, there was no Ivan Spiegel or Jack Dorsey's of Latin America. Like there were no like...
They're still pretty rare today.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they exist, but it's still pretty rare.
Well, but like I remember before Fligoo, I had like a clothing company, like a surf clothing company, like a very small company, But when we began with that company, we wanted the goal was to sponsor the World Surf League, Like the dreams were always huge, We were like 19 or 18.
I love it.
I think
it's good. You gotta be. You think that? Why do you think that you've always operated that way?
I think that I was very lucky that my family they created like a medical devices company, which is like a very hard industry to get in, and they always like this comes from my grandfather, I believe. Like he was a doctor, right? And even if he was from Cordoba, he went to Paris and discussed with the best doctors one-to-one. He never thought that he was less of anyone that was sitting at that table, right? And this guy invested like prosthesis for like getting your dick hard. I actually like a silicone prosthesis, prosthetics, and he invented that. But he didn't know how to sell it, so he told 2 of his sons, like 2 or 3, what did he figure out a way of like he was like a doctor, a scientist more like not a doctor, but like he didn't know how to sell. So he told his sons like go and sell. But they never thought about selling only in Argentina, like they began going to Brazil, to Chile, to Mexico, to Germany,
Yeah. Well, half of the world population has a penis.
Yeah.
No, and not all of them. Not all penises don't work, but it's still a pretty large market.
Exactly. So I know it was my like, and I was born in that like, I never thought that I couldn't compete. I thought like, okay, if these guys did it, like selling penis prosthetics, like I can do it. For me, like I didn't have to convince myself or anything. I was like, I think that I was lucky enough.
Okay. You were raised
Yeah.
already to like operate at that level. Yes. How far along did you go with the surf clothing company?
I had two. Like it was like a clothing company. I had like the first one. For me, it was like amazing because I was able to pay for all my trips, surfing trips or ski trips. By doing that, we sponsored some small things, and then one of my co-founders went to live to Barcelona, and I was like, okay. And then I had another co-founder, started another one, same thing, but for me it was amazing. Like, I could do whatever I want when I was 19 or 20s because my parents didn't give me the money to travel,
Yeah, that's great. It reminds me of how I was able when I was also 20, 21 to get into TechCrunch Disrupt, South by Southwest, all for free, because I originally in college was a journalist, right? So I would sign up for all these conferences as press. And I would put the name of any publication that had some sort of credibility in Brazil. It was all fake. I would even sign up with a Gmail, but I would say that I was a writer for magazine X, and no one did diligence on that, right? Like because who would be crazy enough to travel on their own dime, pretending to be something else, right? I would do that, and then I would write a piece and then sell the piece to the magazine saying, look, like I was there as, independent press. Would you be interested in buying my article? Because you're not covering this event, but it's an important event. So I in a sense, I understand what you're talking about, where, you kind of like just hustle, find a way to make it work. And
the way I get San Francisco is because I was in Buenos Aires, and, in Buenos Aires was the Endeavor Gala,
I've been to the Endeavor Gala in Buenos Aires.
Me too, but like the first time I went there, it was in the Colón Theater. The Colón Theater is a very famous theater in Argentina, which is respected everywhere. So the Endeavor Gala, they closed the Colón Theater for them, and I knew a guy that just like put me under his arm and maybe get through the door, and he got me there. And the after party, the after party was at a bar, so I went with all of these guys, which were Endeavor entrepreneurs, and me was like, I was 25, and I was like talking to everyone, hustling. And my plan was to go to the US, but I didn't know where to go. So a guy tells me, go and talk to that guy. His name is Santi Subotovsky. So I go like, I was like in this bar, we were like we had been drinking for 2 or 3 hours. And I was like, yeah, my name is Lucas. I'm from Córdoba, and I'm going to the US. With Fligoo, I'm going to conquer the US. And he was like, where are you going? I know, I'm going to New York. And he was like, why? In New York, like a company, at the moment, a company has never been sold for more than 1 billion. And we've sold one last week, which was Yammer, right? So he told me, you shouldn't go to New York, you should come to San Francisco. Like, this guy doesn't know, because like these people don't know the influence that they have in other people's lives. I chose San Francisco based on a random conversation with this a very respected guy, but he told me you have to go to San Francisco. The next day, I booked my ticket to San Francisco. Next day.
I love it. And I think, Santi himself, now that you talk about, I should have him on the show. He has a very interesting story as well. For him to become a VC at Emergence and so forth, he ate a lot of shit as well. He was rejected so many times.
And a great guy.
But it's interesting.
Great guy.
He's a great guy. Great guy. Every time I've interacted with him, always hardworking and being honest with advice. And I think that it's important also for you to understand, right, like when to listen and not. That's the problem sometimes I have with like people in Latin America, is that, some other folks will say, oh, you know what, like this guy, he was like shitting on my dream because I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to versus actually, look, like this person is maybe 10 times more successful than you. And so he knows what he's talking about, and have the humility of listening and being grateful also that he was direct about saying that. So that's a great story. That part I didn't know. So it was Santi that made
But
you
like
move.
these guys, they don't
to the
know,
Bay Area.
like very guys like they had like we had a small interactions with them, but it had like so much influence in my life, in the way I took decisions after I met them, the way I thought, my like it's I know, yeah, and I think sometime I always say like I would love if they knew, because for me San Francisco it changed my life, and everything that happened there was based on Santi's advice, like, and I know he may never know.
Well, I will tell
Yeah,
him
tell him.
if you let
Tell
me
him.
when I catch up with him for sure. That's great. Talking a little bit more about the early days in San Francisco. So, did you come first, or did you and Juan? Did you guys came together? What was the plan after you've had this interaction with Santi, and you're like, all right, I'm not doing New York anymore. I'm going to the Bay Area, and then what?
So there was like a NXTP mission. So like they were taking founders to TechCrunch Disrupt 2013 September, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go with these guys, and then I'll stay, right? And I went by myself first. I don't know. I remember like I was living at a hostel, for 2 or 3 months. I remember like
Which one were you at the
USA hostels?
international
No,
one?
USA hostels.
USA
Yeah.
hostels.
And across the street, there was there was a liquor store, but they had like food, But I remember like Juan was the CFO at the moment. My co-founder was the CFO, and all he saw in my credit card expenses, it was like, dude, like you're getting drunk 24/7, because in the credit card it says liquor store. But I was buying food. It's like I lost like 10 kilos, like 20 pounds in like 2 or 3 months, because like living in a hostel is not good advice when you're trying to build a company, right? People are partying, you go to sleep, someone is waking up, like they're coming from all these bar tours and whatever. And they didn't let me stay for more than 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks I had to leave for 2 days and come back. But I remember meeting amazing people, like these Italian guys from Milan. That I know it was good for me at the moment. After 3 or 4 months, Juan came for 2 or 3 weeks. We went back to Argentina for Christmas, and then we came back. And in the process, we were applying for the E2 visa. And I remember also like looking for apartments. And they said like, no, everything is very expensive. We cannot afford that, And when Juan and Marcos, our other co-founder, they came, they began to believe what I was saying. They told me like, it's impossible to pay this amount of rent. Like, you must be like seeing only the expensive like places. And it was like, no, dude, like this city is super expensive, And luckily we got that place that you knew, which had like a rooftop with a grill, and we're
that place, the rooftop. So I mean, every moment I've had on that rooftop was excellent.
yeah, and it was like every single Saturday we invited people to eat Argentinian asado, un asado argentino, and I did like if I met people, I might like I never even know like half of the people that was there, but everything that happened to our company has a common point. It's like we met
with the rooftop.
everyone,
So, and then going back to Fligoo, the business itself. So, guys, super young, very ambitious. You said, hey, I want to play in the most competitive league in the world, and I want to win a ring, right? And I want to win a championship. So, and you're working on the B2C app, and then at that time you raised some money, right?
Yeah, we raised some money.
How much did you raise, and how was that process?
It was $350K, which was like we had a commitment from a Córdoba VC that wanted to lead the round, and the day they had to sign, they said that they wanted to negotiate evaluation. The day they had to sign, you know, like one of the worst practices, you know. And we said no, and we had like a little bit of cash, but luckily things happened, and the next day, two investors appeared from nothing, decided to invest in us, and we raised like, from some investors in San Francisco, $350K. 2 weeks later, Facebook like tells us before they announced it that they were going to close the data access to your friend's information. So our company was dead. You know? The gifting product was dead. Like we kind of.
That's all in a week, right? So you lose the round, then you reclose the round of San Francisco investors, and then the entire the only data access that you need to build your entire business is gone.
It's gone. So we decided to instead of doing it for like product recommendations for someone else, we said, okay, let's create an app that recommends based on Facebook or Twitter data. They recommend content, products, events, and entertainment videos for yourself. And that kind of worked. We were able to raise more money. That app was the number one app, number one in the App Store and the Android Store, the Play Store, for a couple of months. And in the entertainment category, we were acquiring users, and we were like that gave us some validation.
How big did the whole did it get? And it reminded me of what was the name of that company that ended up not going anywhere but raised a ton of money? Was Flipboard.
Flipboard. Oh,
beautiful product.
Beautiful product.
Right. But what happened with these guys?
They're still there. They're still there. I remember like the head of design was an Argentinian called Marcos Westcamp. I remember like showing him all our designs, our new UX, and 2 weeks later seeing Flipboard with the same design before we launched it. It was like, oh fuck! It was like kind of we're in the right path, but like I should have done this, you know. Like Marcos was a great guy. He advised us a lot, but I know he had to do what he had to do, you know. But I think they have a partnership with Samsung too, so it's a pre-installed app in every Samsung device.
I see. Well, apparently I'm looking here to have 145 million users, I guess, but it's a 10-year company, right? It's tough. I think you have all these businesses that no one really hears about anymore. I mean, or they just don't think about it that much anymore. It's interesting. I wonder what will ever be the exit for a company like that. But anyway, you guys were competing against them to a degree because it was at that moment where people thought that social media was going through this aggregation model, and that actually the different social media websites, they weren't as competitive with each other as they are today. So there weren't that many people on the internet, right? So users, I think they were more comfortable with the cross-pollination of users. APIs, you could abuse APIs way better in a way.
It was crazy.
It was a different era. And
we used to scrap content from all these websites, and they would just like tell Amazon, these guys are scrapping, like, and would change servers all the time. You know, like we had to do like all these things. And we made a mistake because we're doing well. We had zero revenue, but we were doing real well in terms of users. We got to, in a couple of months, we got to 750,000 users, which was like pretty well. We had like 20,000 daily active users. At the moment, it was okay. So our investors, the angels that had invested, wanted to follow on and invest again. And one of our investors was Wilson Sonsini, the law firm, right?
Mm-hmm. The law firm, yeah.
So Steve Buckner, the CEO, which is an amazing guy.
I'm a client.
Yeah. Well,
but I haven't met Steve.
Well, yes. Steve is amazing. When he sees we're doing this well, he tells us like, okay, you should go and see Sequoia, Axel, Kleiner, the rock stars at the moment. And our mistake was that instead of getting the money and going later to them, we said, okay, we don't want your money. We'll go for these guys and see what happens.
What guys? Sorry, I guess I missed it.
We met Roloff from Sequoia, Samir Gandhi from Axel, all these guys.
Yeah.
And we were sure we'd close that round. But the consumer at the moment was going down. Our metrics weren't as good as they were supposed to.
I remember this actually. I think this is a good topic to talk about in terms of what is a good founder to VC interaction. Now I recall a conversation that we had at Galvanize many years ago where you were talking about your chat with Roloff and how that got you happy and excited as a founder. If you want to talk more about that, how was that interaction with Sequoia?
I remember Roloff, he was one of the smartest guys I met. He has just had a huge success with Instagram, investor in YouTube. He's the man, right? And I was pitching him about our users, our growth, what do they tell you when you're a founder? Just put the growth curve there, the growth graph there. And when we were there, I remember Jim Getz interrupting the meeting and said is Roloff asking you about the X and Y axis, where you have to go, what you're measuring there? And he was exactly doing that, And I remember him being taking it, following on, and he didn't discard the deal at the moment, he wanted to pursue that. I know I felt in a similar way, he came from South Africa, we came from Argentina, we thought that would be the deal maker, he would feel identified with us, and he knows we're going to be as good as he is, so he will invest. And no, even if we were
yeah, but he was asking you a bunch of questions, I guess, right? That was one of the things that he was communicating and being quite curious about the opportunity itself.
Very curious. And
but that's a good sign, though. I mean, even though he didn't invest, I would say that the worst possible outcome you can get from an investor is silence, right? It's a non-response. Would you say that all the good investors that you met were always responsive?
Most of them were. I remember one of the, but I think that we weren't ready to raise money from him. We weren't ready to be a Sequoia company. We weren't. If you take me now in front of him, it would be a different conversation. And it wasn't we weren't prepared to manage their money and take the company to a good place. We weren't mature enough to take the advice they would give us. We weren't mature enough to have those conversations with their other companies and create partnerships. We weren't ready. And I think that the best thing he could do was to pass. I think that he saw a lot of good things in our company and in the founders and in the founding team, but he knew he had to pass. And I appreciated all his feedback. He never went silent. He gave us a lot of feedback. And that made us learn a lot, I remember
That's awesome.
Getting to the Sequoia office and saying okay, we got here, this is it. And no, that's not, you got in, that's all. You got an introduction and he went to the meeting and that's all, but I think that he had to pass. We didn't give him enough tools to say yes.
That's a very mature way of looking at it, because as an investor, I will say that, the worst possible turn downs is when people, you get rejected, and being rejected is horrible. And no one likes it. But the worst ones are the ones where they respond back to you, say, hey, I'm going to just prove you wrong. Sometimes you get these answers. Versus just understanding and having empathy on the other side, saying, why was I rejected? And even if you are interested in proving them wrong, because I've also been rejected many, many, many times raising money, but I'm always trying to understand, why was I rejected? And do I care, right? Because sometimes you're rejected and it was a stupid reason and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if it's for someone that you appreciate and respect,
It hurts a bit.
or for someone that invested in people that you want to be in the future, then it certainly hurts more. And I think, you need to understand how you're going to deal with that with the right level of maturity. So I think, the way you're talking about it is pretty interesting. So what, and at that time you guys were still a B2C company, right?
Yeah. But like one of these guys, which was Samir Gandhi, who is a partner at Axel. This guy, he was the one that told us, go and sell, like, our core was processing data through algorithms, machine learning algorithms, not to recommend the best products. And Samir at Axel, he told me, like, dude, like, there is no way invest in your company, but I think this has a lot of value to some of the companies of my portfolio. But given that my company, and I'm not going to buy from you because you're a rookie, go and sell to another company and come back. 2 months later, we closed an amazing deal. We closed an amazing deal with one of our investors related companies, and we closed the deal and we became profitable. We had Samir, thank you.
But that's great. As a B2B company.
Yeah, as a B2B company, like licensing the algorithms to these companies. Instead of using this technology to recommend products in the B2C space, we used the same technology and applied it to analyze companies' data and recommend the best products.
I see. And are they still a customer?
Yeah, they are.
That's great. What was the first? Who is the first Fligoo B2B customer?
Allscripts. It's a health tech company based in Chicago, which licenses a software to most of hospitals and clinics and everything. Allscripts.
That's amazing. You went from a B2C publishing company to a B2B data science business. And when you've closed that contract, did you feel like, all right, now I need to become a B2B founder? The whole thing has changed. It all makes sense to me. This is what we're doing. Because how was that, transition in your mind?
For me, it was really hard because I still have like the B2C thing inside me. I want to build a product that's used by millions of users every single day on a daily basis. But in my priorities, Fligoo being successful is the number one, no matter what, But we had to become a B2B company in 2 weeks. And that's a different game.
Yeah, well,
it's a different game.
I think, what mark do you want to be, right? Zuckerberg or Benioff?
Exactly. Well, I know. Today, are those the only two options? No, I know, but today, Benioff for sure.
Yeah.
When I
I mean, I think you have the privilege of being Lucas today, which I think it's probably better in many ways for you.
2000, yeah, but in 2013, I wanted to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. I wanted to be that. I wanted to reject offers from corporations, like he did or how Even did, But now, dude, I want to be the Benioff. I want to disrupt an industry. I want the CEOs, whenever a CEO has to think about implementing new technology to their processes. Now it's machine learning and AI. In 5 years, it will be a different thing. Think about Fligoo, that Fortune 500 CEOs. That's where I want to be,
Yeah, I mean, We will go through the middle of the story, but fast forward today. Name some of your customers.
Oh, like I would like Broadridge, Scotiabank, Practice Fusion, Burger King, Coca-Cola, all these global companies. You know, like Cetera, I know First Republic Bank, like huge companies around the world that are using our software, our products. In Brazil, we have Itaú, B2W, Global, Aegon Insurance globally, MAG Insurance in Brazil. So it's like I'm happy, you know, but like I want to grow more and more every day.
Yes, of course. And then over time, though, you you guys were still in San Francisco. You pivoted, and then did you raise more money, or like in total, how much have you raised so far?
Now like 9 million.
9 million.
But
9 million. Okay.
at the moment, we stopped racing. We became profitable. Our margins were amazing. We began racing again in order to buy out some previous investors. That's how we began racing again.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's also something that I think you crossed like a different path of some aspects that also in this journey of entrepreneurship and startups and venture capital and so forth, like there's just so much, noise and fakeness as well. And I think that if there's one thing that I've always appreciated about you, Juan and Marco, is how authentic, right? Like you guys are, and you're unapologetic about being the way you are. So, and that to me builds like beautiful companies with incredible stories. That's what makes like something truly like inevitable. And there was a moment where like you guys pivoted and you were doing a bunch of different things in order not have to raise money but be profitable as you are closing out a bunch of these large contracts, which it's the contrarian type of story that people think it's the obvious story. It's like, hey, we're geniuses. We're gonna have this brilliant idea. We'll do a prototype, and then we're gonna raise millions of dollars to burn a bunch of money, to then go out and then raise even more. And did you actively, made that choice, or were you like, look, I want to do the traditional route, but I just can't? Or, for me, actually, I don't care. For me, this is what makes sense. And by the way, you'll give me far more independence. And I ask this because I think it's a valid question in the sense that oftentimes I will also see founders that they build, it's just so hard already to build these monsters, these decacorns, these unicorns, but they lose all their independence as well in the middle of it. Suddenly they, they raise all the money, but they don't really run their companies,
For me, like when we began with the company, we wanted to raise money and raise money and burn and grow, But I think it depends on the moment you are like, and what you think is best for your company and the founders also, and all the stakeholders. We didn't function well, like having like when you have to raise money every 9 months or every 12 months, because if you don't raise, you die because you're burning a lot of money. Like it's difficult to decide which is the best thing for the long term. A lot of times, these companies or what we did, it was like whatever it was best for the next funding round, But like if you have the long term vision, like being able to build a business, because a business, not just a product, a business that creates money, creates opportunity, and gives you profit, gives you the chance of making bets for the long term, right? So I think that like for some years, like we didn't raise a lot of money. We weren't out there raising money or in the news, on the news, like claiming what we did. Even if we had like amazing clients, great product, and everything. But now, for example, I I know that if I want to compete globally, I gotta raise money. But I got the power to choose with whom and in which terms, because my company works, and my company has been growing. Our company has been growing every single year, getting better clients, bigger clients every single year, But I can choose who to work with, and I think that freedom is very important. And in the B2C, or when you burn a lot, it is hard to choose. But even if you have to be like number one and number two out there, but a lot of the founders I know, they've lost control of their companies, and they work more for investors than for their company, because they're like giving reports 24/7, like all like with all this smoke, like fakeness out there, like claiming they're doing amazingly. And dude, like, I know you're not, like, we all know.
I think it's interesting that, there's just like a few things I always say to founders when I'm giving them fundraising advice and I'm working with them to raise money. It's like you want to be in a position, you got to earn the position of making decisions from a position of strength with optionality, which is exactly what you said, right? It's picking who I want to work with and who I want to partner with. Because what we do is basically marriage with no sex. So it's kind of like, and hard to have a divorce. So, you need to really work with people that are good people, that you like, that will push you in one way or the other, and so forth. So I think that's all really cool. But, there was a moment before it was, the pandemic and so forth. You made a decision to leave San Francisco and actually go to New York, the original plan. So how was that, and why did you do it, and how was that move?
Like, I did it because, we were selling a lot to banks in the retail space and in the wealth management space. And I had to be in New York. Most of our clients were in the East Coast. We needed to have a stronger team. So for me, it was hard, because like I love San Francisco. At the moment, it was like amazing city. My life was there, like moving to New York with 31 years old, with a girlfriend and everything. Like I had to start from scratch. No one knew me. Like I had no friends there. I couldn't play my soccer every single week because, like, but I had to. I had to, and it was again, like we always try to measure our decisions not in what we want, but what the company needs. And I think it's a very healthy way of having like a balance between co-founders. What does the company need?
That's great.
What
does the company need versus what we want as a framework for decision making across co-founders? It's a good. Do you have a specific framework that you guys use whenever you're making big strategic decisions amongst the three of you guys?
It's like we say that Fligoo's destiny is to be the global leader in the enterprise AI space, right? That's Fligoo's destiny. That's all. That's where Fligoo has to be. Whatever we do in the middle doesn't matter. That's the company's vision, and we have to do everything. We've changed. Like, for example, my co-founders have changed positions many times according to the company needs. Juan began being the CFO, then went to be the COO, and now this is like COO, but he's the head of sales, And Marcos went from being the CTO to the COO. So these guys are so humble. My co-founders they're willing to do whatever, even if they have to learn everything from scratch. Because if you're like the COO and you have to go sell, it's a different game. If you're the CTO and have to be the COO, it's a different game. But these guys, my co-founders, I'm so grateful. I partner with them, and we try to make decisions based on that, on Fligoo's destiny, and that's how we make the hardest decisions.
That's beautiful. What do you think now, as would be probably then the next steps? Because, to a degree, you're a rare commodity in the tech world, meaning you've raised the money to clean the cap table. You're a profitable B2B company that's growing well with large contract sizes in a world where there's just a ton of capital available. What do you think you will, to the extent that you can share on like a public facing thing, but in the sense of like, what is it that what are the next games, I guess, that you are interested in playing in order to fulfill this Fligoo mission?
I know, like we had at the end of the year, we always have a founders barbecue, an asado, and we discuss some bottles of wine. What do we do? What do we want to do? Where are we in a personal and spiritual place? Where do we want to take the company? And of course, you have offers to sell. You have investment offers also, but the decision last year was okay. We've done a great process. We're about to get into those leagues that we will be able to work with people that are much better than we are. We'll be able to hire the people that we dream of working with and to join our company. And we said okay, what do we have to do in order to do that? Okay. So right now we're fundraising. I think this is the healthiest fundraising process we've ever dealt with, in terms of as you grow, you get more offers and people know you more, and you have a lot of recommendations and stuff. I think we're prepared for that. It was hard for me personally, okay, I'm gonna have to change my role, in order to. Now, if we raise this round, I'm gonna have to change my role. I'm gonna have to be more talking to investors. I love being an operational CEO, a product CEO. Getting my hands dirty. Not being outside of the company talking but I'll have to do it. I'll have to talk to investors. I have to be out there. I'll have to give some interviews to the press, whatever. But I think the whole process was so natural. The whole decision-making process was so natural about we're ready for this. Everything we have done in the past is to take us here, to bring us here right now in order to grow more. So now, we're there. We have a very solid team, very solid company, and very excited about the future in the short and the long term.
That's awesome. So you mentioned another aspect of, aside from all the asados and all, the bottles of wine, not only what you want to do strategically or where everyone is, but also where everyone is spiritually. And how do you practice that in your life, or if you have any sort of mindful practice or any spiritual practice, what's your connection with that in life in general?
From my perspective, I'm a Catholic. My spiritual connection with God or energy or whatever you mean, it's been through the Catholic Church.
Happy Easter.
Thank you. But besides that, I'm not a fan, but I was born in a spiritual family, and most of our decisions, the important ones in our company, they have been done with our heart, and I think that's very important in the long term. I know if it was because of our brains, we have sold the company in 2014 when we had an offer from a Brazilian company, but we said no because sometimes what's the fire inside you, the fire in your heart makes you it's it's about the legacy, to transcend. Even if we are not here, and even if we are not part of the company, we have to leave something behind, and not just the money or the money we made, which is important. Like, don't get me wrong, we like money. We want our investors to make a shit ton of money. Some of they have, and of course, it's a company. It's not it's not an NGO. It's not charity, but still, we have a deep spiritual connection, each of us, and we have a lot of spiritual discussions, like every single time, And we know that if you're not in a good place with your family, with yourself, you're not going to be able to perform at your job. It's like health. So
yeah.
So that has to be on the table all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Also, I think before start, wrapping up, there's one question that, because usually we do these long episodes and then we break them apart into small little pieces. Similar format to, the Joe Rogan podcast. And the question I have for you is basically, last time that we spoke, I love the way you described like how you met your fiance, and then the importance, right, like of having a good partner. So, what you have with your co-founders is, again, like similar to, I guess, to a degree, what you have with your investors, which is a marriage with no intercourse, no sex. But then, how was it for you to like find also your life partner in the moment that you were like, oh, actually think this person fits me, and I mean the one, I'll add one thing before you answer, is when we were catching up and I was also telling you, I was like, I'm so fucking tired of all these dates in San Francisco, because whenever they see that you are a VC or a founder, they start interviewing you if they are in tech as well, as if it all seems like a fucking job interview, right? And then you're like, what the fuck, like these people are not normal. Anyway.
So for me, like when I was in San Francisco, all I cared about was about Fligoo. So before I met my life partner now, I had a conversation with my youngest sister, in which she asked me like, what do you want from your life? So like, okay, what I want is to have a family like the one I had. And the family that I had involved business, and achieving outstanding goals. So it was part of that, And she told me like, okay, what are you doing for that? I said like, no, I'm working at my business because I want to teach my kids or my family, whoever, that if you have if you're ambitious and you work hard and you do whatever you have to do, you'll get there. And if you are lucky as I was to be born in a family or in a place that lets you, right? And when, a couple of months later, and she asked me, what are you doing about that? I was like, just that, not the spiritual part. And then I was in Córdoba, near Christmas, and I met this girl in an after party, having these discussions about life. And she told me I want to be the best doctor in the world. And I was like, what the fuck? But it wasn't what she said. It was the look in her eyes, how she said it. It's all in the eyes, Chico, the Al Pacino phrase. It was how she said it. And it was I instantly felt something. I didn't know what. I didn't see her for a year, at least. And then we got involved. But all the time, I thought about someone that could share the vision, my life's vision. She came instantly, you don't, I couldn't find the girl. And she didn't, she was so sure about what she said. She didn't give a fuck about what I did, about these interviews. When you meet a girl, how much did you raise? She didn't give a fuck who I was.
Yeah, exactly. This is great. I mean, also, what type of question is that, right? Like for a first date, she sees you're a founder and asks you how much you've raised, and say, you know what, like, fuck you.
But exactly. But the important thing is like she was like she didn't give a fuck about what I did or whatever. All she cared was about her process. So like I know. So yeah, now I'm getting married. Best decision in my life, I think. It has changed me totally. She has taught me a lot, but I think that like it was the strength in her, strength in her look. She's, as you can recognize more than I can, she's one of the inevitables, you know.
I love it. I love it. This is great. Well, I can't wait. To like, when do you know when you guys? What's gonna happen with because of the pandemic?
Now it's
as well,
scheduled for November 13th. I hope you can come.
I will be there, of course. No, I'll be there.
It's
Count me in. We'll have some Fernet and Coca. So a few last questions. Basically, that we typically ask here, just about some like rapid fire questions. What would be like your ideal morning routine? It's like a good start of your day where you feel, oh yeah, I'm in control. This day is great. Like, do you have specific things you do?
My best morning routine was when I woke up at Soma. I went down, straight to the coffee place where Gerardo was, this Mexican guy that loved soccer. The sun shining, smoked my cigarette before going to the office, play some music, and I was like, boom, this is my day. Nowadays, it has changed a bit. Now I work out before. I work out at 7 a.m. At 8 a.m., I'm at the office. Like, in the new office, we bought like an amazing set of speakers. So I get to the office, open like every curtain, open every single door, and play music, and now I know it's going to be an amazing day. It is going to be an amazing day. There is no way something bad happens.
I love it. That whole affirmation / positive thinking is just very important. Yeah. And also, of course, you got to get a bunch of stuff done too.
Yeah.
But you can't just like not do anything and then think positively. But yeah. Have you started doing something? Maybe this was like already the answer, right? Like, is there something new that you recently started doing that improved your life, or something you bought, or like a new thing, a new habit?
No, like two things. Like one is working out in the morning. I used to play soccer every time at night at 10 p.m. So I went back at 11 p.m. at my place. And now I think the other is like moving in with my girlfriend, Like she's a doctor. She wakes up at 6 a.m. and I wake up with her. And that's awesome.
Yeah. What workout do you typically do?
I know I have I'm training for soccer, like to get into like to go back to play like competitive soccer. So it's a soccer training every single morning, I go to the gym with a personal trainer, like he's a soccer personal trainer, and do all kinds of soccer related stuff. It's amazing because it's fun,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
What do you say is your biggest fear?
Loneliness, for sure. Loneliness, not in the sense of not being surrounded by people, but being surrounded by people that don't care, don't give a fuck about you. And it has happened to me in the past. And I think that's my biggest fear, to be lonely in this world.
That's great. I do think, just as a caveat, I think I share the same fear, to be honest with you, because I ask these questions for so many guests, and I think but not in the sense of like, I'm very comfortable with solitude, right? Being alone with your thoughts and the company of a great book, good wine, nature, exercise by yourself, even going to the driving range for me to learn and become a better golfer, it's fine. But just it's that feeling of being surrounded by a lot of people but feeling alone when you don't have love or you can't trust. Uh, it's interesting when, suddenly sometimes, like, I've had periods in my life where the most frequent relationships I had were dysfunctional, both professionally and personally. And when you get back into a more functional setup, it's transformational. So
solitude.
I think that's
yeah, it's different. Loneliness and solitude, like being by yourself, it's fine. But being lonely, it's sad. I know.
I know. I agree with you. Actually, I think we share the same biggest fear. It's kind of cool. Huh. Is there something that you think it's true that other people don't think it's true?
For sure, I know. I would say yes, but I know what. Like sometimes, like in my daily discussions, I feel like I have like a lot of like things that I give for granted that will happen. That they will, and people don't. But I know exactly what I would tell you. Like I do believe like that this is a good world. I do trust people at first, and those two things. I have a lot of trust in humanity, and the people I meet. I don't think they're here to harm me. I'm not that important, and I think that there is good in every single person here.
Wow, that is a very good note for us to wrap up our chat. But Lucas, once again, I can't wait to see you in person.
Yeah,
I miss all of you guys. When this whole thing is over. But thank you so much for your time and for the amazing conversation.
Thank you, man.
Really appreciate it.
I appreciate what you're doing. Like asking these questions, it's not only hard for the person that answers them, but for the person that asks the question, it's hard. It's good that people here are like doing these things. You know how much I appreciate you and I admire you. So, I'm looking forward to seeing you. I'll be in Miami in 2 weeks, I believe, and I hope we can see each other there.
Oh, we'll see each other in 2 weeks then for sure. Because in 5 days I'm flying there. Even if my stuff has not arrived.
No matter what.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, okay. Sorry for my answers are a bit like all over the place.
Dude, no. It's all good. It's all good. This is exactly what we look for. But thanks, man. It was great seeing you.
It was great, man. And thank you, because these questions also make the guest think and dig a little bit. And that's awesome. Congratulations.
No, dude, it's great. We're just getting started. I'm excited for everything that's about to come.
Okay, me too. See you, my friend.
Okay, bye, man.
Peace.
See you.